Well, this is a special moment for me, of course, as it is for all of you in the audience. And I do want to thank you all for coming and staying as part of this amazing meeting that Dr. Benita Shaw put together, together with a large program committee. It was an amazing week, and I hope you all enjoyed it. I think I'm going to do something a little bit different, which is I feel very strongly that this is our society, and you need to feel like this is a place that you can grow in, that can represent you, and that is growing stronger and stronger and being able to do all the things that we need to do to make the world better. So I'm going to start with a little humor, I guess. I'm going to take you a little bit on my journey. Yeah, have a slide. Because one of the things is that everybody who comes through has a journey. This is my journey. Everybody has a journey, but I hope it inspires you to look through life as you build your life through SCAI on what you can do, how you can impact your career, how you can impact others. The slides just came up. So we're going to start from the basics. So I'm a kid of the 80s. My parents were immigrants into this country. They came in the 60s, and they did build a better life for me and my sister. This is me in the 80s. I had a lot of passions, a lot of things. I lived in a sheltered environment, a great upbringing full of love and affection and opportunity. This is my AP physics class. Great friends who have gone on to do great things. But I was a regular kid. I grew up here in America, born and raised. I was riding a motorcycle to school every day, illegally, by the way. It was the Kawasaki Ninja, so not some little small motorcycle. I used to play paintball on the weekends when it was in its infancy. We would compete and go to different states and compete in the paintball tournaments. I used to sing. Some of you know I sing. I sang last night at the reception. I played track and basketball and varsity. And then I collected a lot of comic books. I'm a geek at heart. I think a lot of us are geeks at heart. You guys all know the geeks rule the world, so it's okay. But this is me. Hopefully I don't look too different, and I wasn't sure if I'd be embarrassed, but certainly this is what I looked like back then. Still with a little bit big hair, perhaps. Okay. So then fast forward, this is my cardiology fellowship. And I think I was a product of Brown University, Brown Medical School, went on to Cornell Internal Medicine, and ultimately finished my academic career at the University of Pennsylvania. You will recognize a few people here. This is Dr. Howie Herman. This is Dr. Dan Kalansky, who's sitting in front of me, who is going to get MSCAI with me today. My co-fellow, Mitch Ross, was at the party last night. And this is me, all the way over here. Will Sauer is chief of EP at Brigham. So I learned a few things in my cardiology fellowship. I hope you guys did too, which is that it is important, I think, to try to be a leader, either in your region, in your locale, within your patients, or even nationally. I also think that our field is special because innovation is a big part of it. We use our hands, we use tools, we partner with industry to move things forward, representative of SCAI as well. Network is important, and for networking. So I devised this concept of LINK, L-I-N-K, leadership, innovation, network, and knowledge. Network is what we're doing here today, building a community, building friends, finding how we can help each other, what we can do together. I think that's very important. It's been a big pillar of my life. And knowledge. Can't do anything without knowledge and experience and wisdom. So this is my personal story. I went to those schools you see up there, went to medicine, Cornell, Penn Cardiology, took you through that. I then went to Cornell for a couple of years as an attending. I grew relatively frustrated. I probably would have at any place like that, which was I felt very regimented. So I disappeared. In 2 years, I went to a hospital in Long Island called Winthrop, which is no longer called that anymore. It was taken over by NYU, but at the time, a very community hospital. So I basically kind of left academics and went into sort of a practice environment where I was the director of the lab, but everybody around me, 90% were private practice physicians. So I had to kind of learn a lot of different things during that. I learned that sometimes moving is good, sometimes moving is just being frustrated and not sure. And when you get there, you have to make the best of it, and thankfully I did, but it's not always the best thing. I learned about private practice and academics. I learned about running a lab, which was not so easy when you're a junior person with a lot of senior people that you have to find a way to show respect but also manage. I learned about running clinical trials. I learned about practice acquisition. This was around that time where all the practices were coming in, so I had to go around and learn about that. I learned about leadership skills and qualities, kind of on the fly, and then about teaching and running a fellowship, which I also did for about 10 years. What I'm explaining here, though, is as you go through your different jobs, try to learn things. Try to figure out what are you learning around the process. And the reason is because as you keep going up in your career, you can use these tools going forward. I learned other things. Something else you can learn as you go along in the 20, 30-year career 30, 40-year career perhaps, is that you have to adapt to the changing landscape. At one point, I was known as somebody who was really all about stents. I would speak all over the country about the stent wars, about the different drug-eluting stents. Obviously, I was director of the cath lab. At one point, I was known as the high-risk PCI guy, doing a lot of Impella, Protect 2 trial. I was part of all of that data collection. I helped start the CVAD registry, all these things. I did a lot of structural for some time. I ran the mitral program, the left atrial appendage program, PFOASD program. And then I built this career on hypertrophic cardiomyopathy that Dr. Hermler already alluded to with alcohol ablation and the cardiac myosin inhibitors. And more recently, this phase of my career is cardiogenic shock and mechanical support. So I give it as an example that whatever you learned in fellowship is going to change. What you did in fellowship is going to change. And don't be as scared of change, because as you grow, you will get better at other things. Don't just stay on something that you think you're so good at. If the field changes and it's not so important, you may have to change with it. I also believed in the networking part that I talked about when I talked about Penn, which is that try to get involved in lots of different things. And so I got involved in SCAI very early, ACC very early, CRF very early, AHA very early, and developed respect for what all these organizations do, and they do things very differently. So, and then I also got involved at my alma mater, Brown University, where I was president of the med school board, and then I became a trustee of Brown University, and I learned a lot of things. I also learned about things outside of medicine. I gained connections outside of medicine. These are very important to give you a vantage point about where medicine fits into the global scene. Was on the HCM Society board. I also got involved in patient support groups. I was on the board of Mended Hearts for some time. And then more recently, the Grunsik Society, which I've made a lot of great friends with, which is a think tank you may or may not have heard of. And even more recently, I got involved in something called Renaissance Weekend, which is sort of a Democrat, not to get political, but a Democrat sort of organization where a lot of important people like Thurgood Marshall Jr. and Andrew Yang all talk about different things. And so I travel once a year to these conferences to learn about where medicine fits in a broader landscape. And more recently, I'm also on the New York State Cardiac Advisory Committee to do things like trying to build radiation protection into our labs in New York State, trying to find ways for networking to do what we're trying to do within our field. So this is my journey within SCAI. I think one of the different things that I feel I did is that I grew up within SCAI. It's been a 20-year journey, not just me, there's other people here too. But SCAI has grown in a big way, and so I had the opportunity to grow as it grew, meaning that they were able to pull me in and allow me to have small victories that became larger over time. So I got involved, really, when I first got involved, I was basically just somebody who did a lot with a lot of industry. And that was the way I was kind of recognized. And then I had this idea to form the ELM program, specifically because I felt that nobody would ever find someone like me at a place like Winthrop in Long Island. So I said, well, why can't it be that if people think they have those qualifications or have a lot of potential, why can't they just apply rather than go to just the big places and try to find these people? And so that was bought into by SCAI, which I give a huge credit for that, because I don't think other people would do that, or their organizations would do that. Through my time, I did a lot with industry relations. I did several documents, the best practices document. I started an interventional heart failure task force here. These are all things that SCAI allowed me to do. And I use it as an example because all of you can do these things and have ideas. Publications, I dabbled in the RUC CPT coding aspect, and obviously you know about the shock criteria, and then more recently the governance selection process, and now board trustees and president. And these are the skill sets on the top right that I feel like I learned along the way. Again, similar to everything else, I was learning about SCAI and what perhaps we can all do if you participate. And that leads me to how big SCAI is right now. SCAI is doing tremendously in all areas that are important to you and me and our patients. We are now the primary home for sure for interventional cardiology. And I say that because for the first time in the past few years, more members view SCAI as their #1 allegiance of all the organizations. And I don't think we've really told people that, but we did surveys on this, and it's very clear that people feel that way, which I think we're seeing in this audience and we see as we walk around this conference. On the top right, you can see all the things we do for career development. This 30 in the 30s we're honoring tonight, the mentor program, professional well-being, all the things we're doing with Dr. Hermler's mission of radiation safety and lead reduction, the emerging leader program, all the things there. So we're trying to make sure the members feel valued. And then on the bottom here, you can see lots of examples of what we do across clinical guidelines, doing our own documents, our own guidelines, having our own journal that is being very successful with more than 1 million views and polls over the past year, doing more advocacy across the board. including advocating on behalf of all of our patients, so the Pulse PAD, to talk about what we do for peripheral vascular disease to prevent amputations around the country, get ahead of the curve and tell society who we are. Seconds count, a lot more about training, such as the Interventional Cardiology Match, and also the board that we're trying to create. But you can see here, SCAI is really moving on all cylinders and really pushing everything. And all of these things are aligned with our strategic plan. This, as my chief says, takes a village. This is how big SCAI has become, and I give a lot of credit to the staff and Francesca Day, our CEO, of putting these amazing people together. And I do want to, actually, let's just quickly do a round of applause for all the staff and everybody at SCAI who put all this together. They are phenomenal. They're not only phenomenal at what they do, but they're always happy and they're always a pleasure to work with. So I see that. I know we all see that. It's worth saying. Brings us to the strategic plan that Dr. Hermler talked about the other day, which is basically we spent a lot of time discussing what are our priorities. And it seems like it might be very simple. It's these 4 pillars. It's health, safety, and well-being, advocacy and access, education and training, technology and innovation. It's very clear. It may seem very obvious, but you always have to kind of reroute yourself and reground yourself on the most important things. On the right, this is what this means. Advocacy, what's the physician interest? What's the patient access and interest? Health, physical, mental, and well-being. Technology, working with industry, new technology, new treatments. Train and guide our fellows and our next generation, also our early career and mid-career. How do you adopt new technologies as you get older in your career stage? We also put down a lot of tactics on how to get from point A to point Z, and also metrics to confirm progress. So this is very granular in terms of what do we want to do, how are we going to do it, how are we going to measure it, okay? And hopefully what you see and feel about what SCAI is doing really represents that mission and that directive. Now on to the priorities, and these are things that I've vetted within everybody within SCAI, and they're not out of the blue. These are all things that are very much in line with the strategic plan and just sort of moving them all forward. There's certain things that we're already doing. Health, safety, and wellness. So we're focusing on radiation protection, lead and orthopedic injury protection. Our health has to be important. We cannot take care of everybody else if we're not there. And we do not need impediments to people going into a field that is as wonderful as ours if we have to worry about our own health. But I want to also bring in the wellness aspect. I don't like the term burnout, but I do think that the wellness has to be a lot more about how do we find joy and how do we make sure that throughout the course of our lives and our careers, we stay who we are and we find joy in what we do and find joy in what we do outside of work as well. So that'll be a focus of my presidency as well, to make people feel very empowered about who they are as an interventional cardiologist and maintain that throughout. We spent a lot of time on governance and membership engagement over the past few years. We put together a system where you probably all know you can actually vote for your president with SCAI. We put together a list of people who qualify based on internal metrics, and then everybody votes as a member for their president. We will be exploring whether the board of trustees should be voting members as well, or whether we want to have more people or whatnot, but we'll be evaluating that to see how it's working and a way to move forward. The other thing is member engagement. As long as I can remember within SCAI, people are always asking, how do I get involved? And it's very unclear. We can say the different paths that people take, but we have not done a good job of saying to people why you qualify and what you can do to make sure you qualify. So over the past few years, we put together a very clear graphic on the qualifications that are required and possibly the time as well. The time it takes within SCAI and what is expected to get onto different roles within committees, within the board of trustees, at the executive committee. So it's very clear. And why does that help? Because if it's not clear, it will always be looked at as a club that we just let our friends. And clearly the ones who get involved and do a lot more on that are going to be our friends, but it should always be that it's because of the work that they do and the impact that they make that they get onto these different committees. So I think we're going to add that and message that out there because it is true and it is real, but it's not so visible. Science publications guidelines, you already know we're doing a lot of these, and we're very strategic. So between this and the Scientific Oversight Committee, we're going to be a lot more strategic in the types of papers we do, doing more surveys on what is needed, prioritize the papers, and do more official guidelines as opposed to consensus statements. The ABCVM2, this is basically, as you know, we did not get past that first hurdle. So we have a lot of options, okay? We have to sample our members again. How angry are we, okay? Is this important right now? How important is it? And how much should we fight? We are your representatives. Options include starting again in 2 years. Another option, Negotiate with ABIM. Maybe they can get their prices down. Maybe they don't want another fight. Maybe they'll be able to do something in the meantime. Option number 3, find another way. Okay? Option number 4, let it go. These are all options that we're going to have to explore, but we're going to have to explore with you together and the other organizations. Now some new initiatives. One is that every organization as it grows needs to make sure that it is strong financially. So to do that, you need to be sustainable, and we're going to start a philanthropic arm. Sounds funny, but what does that mean? It means individual giving. It means member giving. It means foundational giving. Trying to explore ways that we can get funding to maintain in a fungible way the mission of SCAI and the strategic plan as it's outlined here. Because, as you can tell from the stock market and other things, there are variances in funding support that we need to be able to weather, like any major institution. As we do this, it'll be very important to make it clear that every money that comes in is member-centric and going back. We do not want the image that money is coming in and going to make SCAI just a big organization for big organization's sake. And so it's very important that that messaging is going out, and we're just in the beginning of exploring this, but you'll hear more about it. Advocacy and strategic alliances. So we are very good and increasingly good at the PAC. We had 4 representatives from Congress here the other day, here at our meeting, and we had 40 visits on the Hill these 2 days, thanks to our advocacy committee who are and our members who go out and do this. But we could be better even, meaning because as SCAI gets bigger, we have the possibility to form allegiances in a larger way with the American Hospital Association, which by the way is here at our hotel, okay, with insurance companies, with government. We need to do more outreach telling people who we are and why they need to deal with interventional cardiology specifically to handle some of public health problems that are specific to interventional cardiology, like heart attack care, shock care, and other services. Mid-career skills. So several of you will be in the ELM program or are in the ELM program, which is a leadership pipeline I already talked about. But one of the things that I was always a little bit uneasy about was that once you get into ELM, or if you don't get into ELM, there's no way to get back in. And we realized that a lot of people do very well outside of ELM, and also there's something called a leaky pipeline, where in the middle of your career, you don't have as much opportunities to get back involved and to build skill sets. So we're building in ELM as 2.0, which is basically leadership skills for mid-career. And we're opening it up not just to the ELM program, but to anybody who has that capacity and has demonstrated. So there's a second option to get back into the ELM program. And finally, something near and dear to me, people know that I'm a shock. I'm very passionate about cardiogenic shock and reducing mortality in cardiogenic shock. So I'm introducing a new term called the door to lactate clearance, the DLC. So in the publication on Tuesday that's coming out with SCAI, I'm going to introduce this, which is basically that as shock has gotten more complicated, I started the definition with Dr. Barron because we want to make it simple, have a simple definition. But then everybody came involved, which is great, and now the field has grown and we're getting more detailed again. Different phenotypes, different etiologies, different time courses, different hospital settings, different states. And it gets very complicated. I want to break it down and make it very simple. No matter what you are, where you are, what team you have, what devices you have, you focus on clearing the lactate in 24 hours. So that puts the onus back on your state, your hospitals, and your systems, your transfer systems, and everybody to find a way to reduce the lactate and improve mortality to only 20%. Okay, which is still a ways to go. So you'll hear more about this. We'll try to push this out, but over the next year, we're going to try to get everybody to talk about DLC. I'm going to end this last couple slides about work-life harmony. Those of you who know me very well know that I got divorced when my son was 2 years old. And so I did a lot of these things as a single dad. And this is me and my son on the left in Disneyland when he was just a little guy. And we went to Disneyland, Disney World rather, a few years in a row until he got too old to do that. And then on the right here is me with him when he's a little bit older. I think he was 13 at this time, but very special relationship. But the point is that I prioritized my family, and I did not do work at home. And it became very clear to me that I was very happy by compartmentalizing my life. I'm not saying it's easy for everybody, but I would insist that people all do this. I still also keep up all my activities. You can see here on the right, I still sing, I still collect comic art, which is granted much more expensive these days. I still am a basketball fan, but I don't play basketball anymore. I don't ride motorcycles anymore. I don't play paintball anymore. And mainly for orthopedic issues, probably. So wellness includes remaining who you are is the key, and it's going to be part of what I challenge SCAI to also push out to all of our members. Finally, I do think that we need to be a lot more proud of what we do. I think it's not in our nature to be proud or to speak our own praises, but the truth is interventional cardiology is not as visible in the general public as you might imagine. And yet we are the ones fixing most of the valves. We're the ones also helping with the heart failure patients. We're the ones treating all the heart attack and all the shock. So you can see here, I don't know if you guys are Knicks fans, this is my seats at the Knicks game, and that's Jalen Brunson, who is the star of the show, and they always sit right behind me, interestingly. So I get to know all these people. But you can see the hat I'm wearing is a hat that I always wear from Block Island, where my son and I always went every summer for vacation. And we've modeled now a SCAI hat after that hat. And I would like to have everybody who has the hat here show it to everybody else. There you go. So the idea here, it sounds simple, but we want something that everybody can wear, that they can go around the world, and as they wear it, it just has the logo. So you don't have to ask you what that logo is, and you're going to tell them proudly that you're in interventional cardiology, and this is SCAI, and this is what we do. And I hope that you will do that. I'm going to end with this last slide. These are my parents. My parents passed away past few years. This is the part that could get emotional, but I'm okay. So my parents, I'm just going to tell very briefly, this is my family. My parents passed away, this is my son. This was a few years ago before my mom passed away. And I just want to make it very clear to people here that my parents are immigrants, and they came here and they built a better life, and they worked really, really hard. And they, geez. It's okay. Huh? It's okay. Yeah. And I think there's two American dreams. One is that you can come. They came when they were called. This is the 60s, right? We needed doctors in this country. So they came and they built a better life and they worked really hard. And they worked so hard that I didn't even know that they were doing pretty well too. Because by the time I went to college, we were still, I think, relatively poor. And then they did well after that. And then I didn't really recognize that. So they did very well, but they certainly paid for my college. They paid for all these things, and I didn't have loans. Very grateful. But I think the second part of the American dream really is people like me, which is that things that I can do and they were proud of is because they were not able to do those things. So the real dream is that you can, based purely on merit, you can keep moving and you can break glass ceilings and you can really help move something that you're passionate about forward. I say this also because our field in general also has a lot of immigrants and a lot of people of diverse natures. And I want to make sure that you all feel that the true merit is what you can do with your heart and what you can do with your hands in this field. And if you can do both of those things, you have a place at SCAI. So thank you very much.